Hi, and welcome to Lamplighter Podcast. My name is Rebecca, and this is my squirrel friend, Momo.
Hello, kids!
We have an exciting story for you today. In each of our stories, we are going to learn about one virtue. A virtue is anything that is good and right and true. Virtues are like little lights that shine bright and beautiful in a story.
Can I tell them about letters from Momo?
Go ahead.
I want to send you a real letter in the mail once a month. In my letters, I will tell you more silly forest stories, talk about virtues, and show you a real historical person who practiced that virtue. Oh, and I'll also talk about acorns.
If you would like to get letters from Momo in the mail once a month, just ask your adult to visit lamplighterkids.com. If you sign up before the 20th, you will get a letter from Momo for that month. Visit lamplighterkids.com for more information. So, are you ready? Come and listen while we light the way to your imagination. Hi everyone, and welcome back to our regular Lamplighter Kids Stories. I had a great summer vacation, and I hope you all did too.
I'm so excited you're back! I really missed our regular stories, even though it was fun doing my summer camp stories.
I'm so thankful you did that, Momo, and I'm very excited to be back as well. Before we get started with our exciting story today, I have a couple announcements to make. First, I wanted to tell everyone that most our Lamplighter songs are now on Spotify. If you've ever wanted to listen to the songs without having to find them tucked in the story, now you can. Just search for Lamplighter Kids Songs and you will find 2 albums with songs from our first several episodes on this show.
I've already been listening to them in my room and dancing with my acorn.
You would do that, wouldn't you, Momo? And now for our next announcement.
Oh, can I announce this one? I'm so excited about it.
Of course, Momo. Go ahead.
Okay, here it is. Rebecca and I are going to publish our first Lamplighter Kids book. We chose 4 stories from our podcast, and we will be creating fun pictures to go along with them in a book format. I'm going to be writing some fun extra things in the book as well.
That's right. We are very excited about this project and can't wait for it to be available. We'll keep you all updated on our new book release.
And now, can we have a story, please? I've waited so long.
Of course, Momo. I would love to. Today's Lamplighter story is about a family who decides to fly their small plane to a cabin in Alaska. The Tobler family was like a lot of other normal families. They worked and went to school and were very normal in most ways except for one thing. They owned their own small plane and loved to fly it together as a family. Mr. and Mrs. Tobler had always loved flying. So once they had their kids, Hudson and Emma, it was natural to invite them into this unique hobby of theirs. Now that Hudson and Emma were 9 and 6 years old, the family liked to spend most weekends together in their plane, flying over their suburban town, laughing and joking together as they did. Mr. and Mrs. Tobler would sit in the front, flying the plane, while Hudson and Emma sat in back, enjoying the view of tiny houses and cars and streets out the window. "This will be nothing compared to the rivers and lakes of Alaska, kids," Mr. Tobler said one day through his headset as they flew over their town. The family was just a few days away from taking an epic journey to Alaska, where they had rented a cabin in the middle of the mountains, far away from any town or city. They were going to spend a whole month up there, flying around whenever they wanted, hiking, enjoying the coziness of a cabin far away. This was going to be the trip of their dreams, and they were all so excited for it to begin. Mrs. Tobler looked out at the gray, flat city below and dreamed of the green trees and blue cliffs of Alaska. Just a few more days, she said. She looked back and smiled at Hudson and Emma, who both smiled and gave big thumbs up. They were all ready for their grand Alaska adventure to begin. A couple days later, after lots of packing and saying goodbye to family and friends, the Tobler family finally found themselves in Alaska.
Just smell that air,
Said Emma as she skipped up the tarmac towards the small plane that they had rented for the month.
It's so much fresher than our air back at home. Isn't that right, Squishy?
Emma held up her stuffed animal cat and looked at him lovingly, pretending that he understood everything she said.
I love the mountains already,
Said Hudson, walking up behind her and looking around at the distant cliffs.
I can't wait for Mom and Dad to fly over them and find our cabin.
All right, kids. Mr. Tobler came up carrying some bags. Here we are at last. See that small plane over there? That's the one we're flying. Everyone headed towards the plane, chatting excitedly about the trip. After the bags were loaded, everyone got in, with Mr. and Mrs. Tobler at the yoke. They all put on their headsets, shut the doors, and then the engine turned on with a loud roar. The small plane began to taxi towards the airstrip, and once it got there, it began to pick up speed. Soon the wheels were lifting up and away. Mrs. Tobler gave a happy little squeal into her headset, and the two kids clapped in excitement. Hudson and Emma eagerly looked out their windows, not wanting to miss all the new scenery below. Emma grabbed Squishy and put his face to the window so he could get a good look too. Flying over the clear lakes and blue mountains of Alaska was exactly what everyone had dreamed it would be. They flew high and low, enjoying the view from every angle.
Look, Dad, this side. Look at those big mountains over there. Mama, look, there's moose drinking out of the lake down there. Look, kids, see those salmon jumping along the river?
After about an hour, everyone settled into a happy silence. They were getting close to their cabin and were trying to enjoy the last of the scenery before they landed. Mr. and Mrs. Tobler kept checking their navigations, making sure they were headed the right way. The cabin was a small target in this vast wilderness, so they didn't want to miss it. Aha! I see our cabin over there, guys! Mr. Tobler pointed out the window. Down below, tucked into a valley surrounded by tall blue mountains, there was a picturesque little wooden cabin. On one side of the cabin was a long dirt airstrip for landing, and on the other side was a large pond. They could see trails leading up from the cabin into the surrounding woods.
I want to go hiking when we land,
said Hudson, trying to decide which trail he wanted to go on.
I think we need to save our hiking for tomorrow,
said Mrs. Tobler through the headset as they began their descent.
The sun's going down soon, and we need to unpack and get our cabin cozy and ready for our month here.
Why don't we all do a big hike in the morning, said Mr. Tobler right before the plane's wheels touched the dirt with a bang, and they came slowing down to a stop. The minute the engine turned off, Hudson and Emma excitedly unbuckled and ran toward the cabin to check it out. Mr. and Mrs. Tobler smiled at them as they began to grab some bags. I think we made the right decision to come here. Those kids are going to have the time of their lives. With that, they headed toward the cabin, happy to finally be in their 1-month Alaska home. The next morning, after a delicious cabiny breakfast of pancakes, Mr. Tobler took a sip of coffee and said, "All right, my Alaska adventure crew. In half an hour, we'll get ready for our first hike, but until then..." He walked over and opened the front door of the cabin to stare across the pond. "I think Mom and I need to sit on the porch and drink our coffee. Just smell that fresh mountain air." The next moment, a very strange noise came from outside. Emma and Hudson jumped,
Was that a grizzly bear?
whispered Emma, listening to the bellows. They had learned all about the kinds of animals that lived here in Alaska, but were hoping not to see a grizzly. Wow, you guys, come look, Mr. Tobler called as he stepped outside onto the porch. Everyone ran out, expecting to see some sort of bear, but found a surprise. Wow, said Mrs. Tobler. Just across the pond was a herd of moose drinking. One of the moose lifted her long nose into the air and let out the same loud noise that they had just heard.
It's a moose noise,
Giggled Emma.
I'm super glad it wasn't a grizzly bear.
The family watched the herd of moose for a while until they slowly left the pond and went back into the forest. That was incredible, said Mrs. Tobler as the last of the moose disappeared. Well, guys, I'm not sure about you, but I think I'm ready for that hike now. Hudson and Emma hooted and bounced back inside the cabin to get ready. Mrs. Tobler laughed as she watched how quickly they pulled on their socks and sweaters.
Okay, I'm ready. Meet you all outside,
said Hudson, and with that he was off, Emma following close behind. After they had been hiking for a little while up the nearby hill, Hudson stopped and pointed towards a bush.
Look, I think those are blueberries.
Everyone came and, after the parents double-checked their guide to make sure that they were indeed edible blueberries, the whole family dug in.
These are the sweetest, most delicious blueberries I've ever had,
said Emma with a mouth stained blue. Shh, wait, guys. Do you hear that? Mr. Tobler stopped chewing and lifted his head. Dad, now's not the time for a joke, said Hudson, who was sure that his dad was trying to scare them. No, I'm actually serious. Don't you hear that? Everyone could see he was serious, so they stopped picking and listened. To their surprise, they heard a small noise coming from the forest a little ways off. The noise got a little louder. It sounded almost like a duck. That doesn't sound like a grizzly, said Hudson. Let's go see what it is. Our first Alaska adventure. After a short debate, the family decided to go and see. They carefully walked through the woods toward the noise. As they got closer, the noise stopped. This way, said Mrs. Tobler as she led the family through a few more trees until—
Oh,
exclaimed Emma.
a baby moose!
And indeed, there, in the middle of a small clearing, lay a little moose calf. When the calf saw the Toblers, he tried to get up and run, but something was wrong. Look, said Hudson. His leg is stuck. The family looked down and noticed that the little moose seemed to have gotten his foot very stuck between some large rocks on the ground.
What do we do?
said Emma, looking at her mom and dad.
We can't just leave him here. He'll die.
Mr. Tobler looked at the little moose, his heart filling with compassion, then said, I'll go see if I can help him. Everyone watched as Mr. Tobler slowly walked toward the small moose. The moose saw him coming and tried to get up and run away, but with his foot stuck, he only fell back to the ground.
Maybe he thinks Daddy is a grizzly bear. Poor little guy,
said Emma to her stuffed cat Squishy, whose head was peeking out of her backpack. There, don't be scared. I'm not going to hurt you, said Mr. Tobler as he gently laid a hand on the calf's head. The calf watched him with wide eyes, but knew that he couldn't escape. Mr. Tobler slowly reached down and took a hold of the small, stuck leg. He wiggled it slightly, then pulled a little. I think if I could just move this rock and twist it like this. The moose gave a little grunt as Mr. Tobler tried to free him. Finally, after a little more wiggling, his leg was free.
Yay!
said Emma, quietly clapping so as not to scare the moose. The calf immediately tried to run away, but tripped and fell in front of Mr. Tobler. There he stayed, breathing heavily. I think his leg still hurts a bit, said Mrs. Tobler. Poor little guy. Do you think some blueberries would help him? said Hudson. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a large handful of wild blueberries that he had been saving for later. I don't think it would hurt. You guys want to come over and say hi? Try and see if he likes those blueberries." Mr. Tobler beckoned his family to come. Everyone walked over quietly. Emma began petting the moose on the head, while Hudson held out his handful of blueberries to him. To everyone's delight, the calf took one sniff, then began eating the blueberries right up. "I think he's hungry. I wonder how long he was laying there," said Mrs. Tobler. After a few minutes of petting and nibbling berries, the calf tried to stand again. Everyone backed up to give him space. This time, after some wobbly steps, the little moose began trotting away into the forest. "Bye-bye, little guy," Emma yelled after him. She took Squishy out of her backpack and made his stuffed paws wave goodbye to the moose. "Do you think he'll be okay, Mama? Does he know where he's going?" "I don't know," said Mrs. Tobler, "but at least we gave him a good chance to find his family again." And with that, the Toblers made their way back to the trail to finish their hike. A while later, while they sat and rested, Emma started humming a tune, which the rest of her family happily put into a song. There are a lot of creatures in this big old world. When we open up our eyes, we can see each other's lives. And we might find that there are creatures in need. Whether animal or human, they might need somebody to give a hand. Compassion is what we need to show each other when we're feeling so low. Compassion, it helps us all to see each other and to meet each other's needs. To meet each other's needs. Early the next morning, as the Toblers enjoyed homemade muffins, they heard a familiar noise. "It's that loud moose again!" yelled Emma. She grabbed Squishy, then ran over to the front door, hoping to get a view of the moose from the porch. Hudson followed behind her. "Maybe they come to this pond every morning. It's kind of like moose morning coffee." Mr. and Mrs. Tobler laughed as they headed toward the porch with their kids, hot coffees in hand. "Wait a minute," said Hudson, looking at the moose across the pond. "Look there, at that little guy. Do you think that's our baby moose?" Everyone looked where he was pointing. Across the pond there was a calf keeping close to its moose mother. The calf seemed to have a limp on one of its front legs, like it had just been hurt recently. "He's limping on the same side as the calf we saw yesterday," said Mrs. Tobler. "I think that's our little friend, you guys." With wide smiles, everyone watched as the little moose drank some of his mother's milk. The mother moose turned and licked him on the back. Then she lifted her long nose and bellowed happily. "I think that Mama Moose is the same one who was bellowing yesterday," said Mr. Tobler slowly. "I bet she was calling for her lost baby and we didn't even know it." "Oh, how wonderful!" Emma exclaimed. "We helped him find his mommy. Isn't that adorable, Squishy?" Emma gave her stuffed cat a big hug. The Toblers had an amazing time at their cabin that month. They flew their plane around the mountains, hiked new trails, watched the moose herd every morning, especially enjoying the baby moose and his mom, and made great family memories. Afterwards, when talking about their trip, they all agreed that one of the best parts was helping the little moose to find his mother again. They were so happy they had compassion on him when he was stuck in the rock. It was certainly an adventure they would never forget.
Wow, I wish I could fly like that, family. I wonder if they make planes in squirrel sizes.
I've never heard of a squirrel-sized plane. Probably because most squirrels can't fly planes.
Well, I want to fly a plane. Maybe I'll go to Alaska like the Toblers. I heard there's lots of acorns in Alaska.
I'm sure that's true. The Toblers picked a beautiful spot to fly to, and they certainly had some great adventures up there. But their favorite adventure was rescuing the baby moose. When they saw him stuck there in the rocks, their hearts felt so sad for him, which is what our virtue in this episode is all about. Compassion.
Wait a minute. Compassion? Didn't we already do a story about the virtue of compassion?
You have a good memory, Momo. We did already do a story about compassion. I decided to do more stories about some of the same virtues we've already talked about. The reason is because the same virtue can be found in many different stories. I think it would be good for you and our listeners to learn about the many different ways our virtues can show up in a story.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'm excited to hear more stories about the same virtues.
In this episode, the Toblers had compassion on the calf when they saw him stuck in the rocks. Compassion means that you feel bad for someone when they are having a hard time. When you feel compassion for someone, it makes you want to help them. All right, let's do question time. Question 1. What does compassion feel like? Question 2. How did the Toblers show compassion to the calf in this story? Well, it sure felt good to share another story with you all today. I missed it.
It felt good to hear another story too. In fact, can you tell me another one right now?
All in good time, Momo. I'll have another story for you and all our listeners very soon. Thanks for listening to Lamplighter Podcast today. If you liked our story, please leave us a review. It really helps other listeners find these stories. If you're interested in subscribing to Letters from Momo, just visit our website at lamplighterkids.com. I also love to hear from my listeners. You can email me anytime at lamplighterkids@gmail.com.